about when I lived in Los Angeles, and we had some really interesting neighbors in that apartment building. Yeah, I'll use that word, interesting, okay? We had one guy who thought he was better than everyone else because he was like 1/1,000,000th of 1% more attractive than the average person, right? And we had another guy who, you ever just get into a situation where someone talks a little bit longer than you necessarily want them to when you're on the way to something? Like if you have a long day at work, you're just beaten up. Maybe you worked in the factory. Maybe you had a long day in the office, and you just want to use niceties when you run into somebody in your office building. You just want to say, "Hey, man," and just go about your business. "How's it going?" And they just say, "Hey, how's it going with you?" "Hey, great." And you go back but this is one of those guys that would literally stop you and tell you for 10 minutes. You're literally standing there holding food from a takeout place. Every normal human being knows when you see somebody walking towards their front door and they have something in their hand that indicates a hot dish and it's late in the day or the evening, the last thing they want to do is stop and talk about something, especially if it's something that could have waited or something that they didn't necessarily need to hear about in the first place, you talking bastard. By the way, I happened to be walking in with hot food, and he started talking about some dumb crap, and I couldn't get rid of him. I didn't want to be impolite. I couldn't get rid of him. I didn't want to be impolite. But then I said, "Oh, wait a minute. Oh, God, I got to make a phone call." He goes, "Oh, okay." And I realized, yes, that got me away from him, and my food is still hot, but I can't be trying to get a phone call every time I see this schmuck. So now I'm trying my best to Mission Impossible my way into the house so I don't have to see him. But unfortunately, this sucker is standing by his front door smoking a cigarette, and I know daggone well he's sitting there waiting for me to come by so we can bend my ear about some stupid crap I couldn't care less about, the bastard. Which was the truth. Well, one time I was coming home, but I wasn't coming home from work. I was coming home from a bad time with someone I was dating, right? She had done some stuff. She was mean to me and I felt really bad. She was mean to me based on something that I didn't do that she apologized about later. But, sometimes when you're really mean to somebody, they don't look at you exactly the same way. Even if they forgive you, it's like having a glass that, just imagine if you had a glass and somebody fixed the glass in such a way that you couldn't fill it all the way up anymore. It was impossible. Maybe there was a little hole at the top of the glass where if you tried to fill it up, the liquid would leak out, right? And instead of getting rid of the glass, you kept the hole of the glass. You just know not to fill it up to that point. And sometimes we have friendships and familial relationships and romantic relationships that are just like that. There's a hole. You can fill it most of the way up, but you can't fill it all the way up because you can't get out of your mind what that person did. You forgive them, but it's never quite the same. And at this point in time, in that particular relationship, I had forgiven her, or I was going to forgive her, but it wouldn't be quite the same. But at this particular point, I hadn't gotten to the forgiving part. I had gotten to the I'm really hurt that she was the way she was or said what she said. I don't want to get into specifics, but it was pretty bad, right? Even though I was right and she was wrong, which she apologized for, but the hole was in the glass, metaphorically speaking. Back to this guy. So I'm walking up the steps and I see him and I'm like, oh, I can't Mission Impossible past this bastard. Oh, and I got more hot food. Oh, you know what the hell, right? I'm walking slow. He sees that there's something wrong. He asks me what's going on, right? And at the same time, I kind of, girlfriend problems. And he goes, yeah, my wife. And he starts telling me about some stuff that his wife did. Almost as bad as what happened to me, but probably worse because he was actually married and living with the woman and I was just dating this particular lady, right? And as I'm like, yeah, that sucks. And I'm kind of half, not even thinking, and I'm walking toward my house and he's still talking. And then he walks in with me and I look at him like, is this guy just walking to my apartment? I'm like, dude, you're 2 apartments down. Why is he walking in? And he keeps talking, right? And all of a sudden it becomes about him. But as it turns out, it wasn't that big of a deal. I put my food in the refrigerator and I said, you know what? He's venting. He feels exactly the same way I do. And then I'm going to vent to him and then we'll have this little vent session. We'll bond over this a little bit, but I still don't necessarily want to talk to this chump every day. Nice enough cat, but I don't want it, right? So I show him compassion. And he vents and 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 vents. I look at the clock. It's been 90 minutes. I haven't said crap yet. Now I don't want to vent anymore because if I vent, he's going to respond and he might be here till next week. So I give him the short version of what happened to me. At this point, I'm not as angry anymore, right? We bro hug. He leaves. I walk him through his door. We bro hug one more time. And I'm thinking that's it because I was stupid. I've mended fences with my girlfriend. Once again, there was a hole in the cup. And of course, I'm not married to it. So obviously the relationship ended a few months later, maybe about a year later, something like that. Well, that's beside the point. Back to this bastard, right? So now, because he had some place to vent, every single time his wife tortures him, it turns into 75 to 90 minutes of this bastard sitting in my house, taking up my time at the end of a work day. I'm tired. I, at the time, worked in an office and had to be literally making sales calls at 6 o'clock in the morning on my first job. Then I was doing stand-up comedy at nighttime. Yeah, stand-up comedy shows end kind of late, right? And when they were not doing stand-up shows, I had another day job, an evening job. So when I came back, I either had done a long sales job and some stand-up at night, or a long sales job and another job and coming home. So when I came home, I was never refreshed, never looking to hear someone complain for 75 to 90 minutes, but this bastard did it. And now his wife is even more angry at him. Where are you going for this 75 to 90 minutes? You're going down to that guy's house? What, are you complaining about me? So now she's even madder at his punk ass because his punk ass is telling my punk ass his punk ass problems with his punk ass. 92 days of this. 92. You're probably going, they weren't 92 days in a row, were they? Yes, they were. And each of those 90 days was 75 to 90 minutes. And as the time went on, as we went from day 3 to day 15 to day 20, the 75 to 90 minutes turned into 80 to 90 minutes, turned into 90 minutes, turned into 98 minutes, turned into 120 minutes. At the end of a long day, I had shown this cat some compassion. I gave him the inch and he took a mile. A mile. Now, I'm a nice guy. I didn't want to go, hey, dude, I kind of like you a little bit, but I don't 90 minutes a day at my front door like you, or 90 minutes you walking into my apartment and cutting into my time. I didn't want to say that to the bastard. Right? And I also didn't want to get into a situation where I stayed away from my home because I didn't want to see his punk ass, because now all of a sudden that's just as bad. I have to go someplace I don't want to go. And what if I go to that place and then his punk ass is still waiting for me? Then I still got to do the 90 minutes after avoiding his ass. Hell no, right? So what would you do in that kind of situation when you want to get rid of this bastard? What would you do? Now, current me would have cut that crap and nipped that crap in the bud easily. When you're a middle-aged man, you have the intellect that you don't have when you're in your 20s, the maturity that you don't have in your 20s. And then you can go, hey, because I would go, hey, look, man. I know you like to vent and all that kind of stuff, but the more you talk about it like that and you vent like that on a regular basis, it becomes a habit. Literally, complaining becomes a habit. And you should take that energy. And instead of venting to me, which I don't mind, which would have been a lie, and I don't mind, which would have been a huge lie, use this energy to talk to your wife. Because the more you talk to me, the less you talk to her. The less you talk to her, the more distant you become, and the problem becomes bigger. I care about what happens to you, man, and I want to make sure that you fix this problem because I don't want you to lose your wife. Okay, maybe you should go to counseling. Venting to me is fine, but it's not going to help your problem. What I'm really thinking is, dude, I'm annoyed with you and your wife. I hope she divorces you and takes the apartment so you have to move away because she don't